Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? I don't think that you can hear us. I can hear myself. Sound check, sound check.
Раз, два, три.
Can you hear English translation? Can you hear?
Уважаемые техники, можно ли сделать что-нибудь со звуком? Слышно меня? Так, вот теперь прекрасно.
Now it sounds just great. So good morning, everyone. Please excuse us for a little delay. I'm very grateful to everyone who joined us here in this Technopolis, Moscow, at the Forum of Open Innovations. And thank you very much that you start your business program of open innovations from our session, building a new ecosystem and socio-cultural differences. It's not such an easy topic, and we would like to talk about not only about political and social build blocks of this system, but we would like to talk about more about the different features that influence the forming of the process, innovative process in different societies. Oftentimes we ask ourselves why in different countries innovation process goes in with different pace. Why in one society there are certain difficulties and delays when you're trying to implement new technologies, and a different society, different country, they're just mega capable of introducing innovations. Who is the one? Who is the decision maker? This is a state, companies, maybe scientists and small companies. These are the ones who make decisions and implement, or venture investors. Is the situation the same in different countries, or what are the different countries' peculiarities in promoting innovation? So we would like to make a comparison of different national ecosystems, innovation ecosystems, what models they have in different countries, and to understand how to adapt it, and some successful practices of innovations, how socio-cultural peculiarities, how they influence the international collaboration, and what useful Russia can take from the West and East in order to promote innovation policies with less cost. I would like to introduce our speakers today. Alexei Wexler, this is a Deputy Minister of Energy of Russian Federation. Vasily Belov, Senior Vice President of Innovation, Skolkovo Foundation, Francofo, Executive Vice President, Business Development and Kingsoft Office Software. Mr. Francis Yeo, the Professor of Entrepreneurship Mastery at the School of Information Technology of National University of Singapore. Mr. Suan, Senior Staff Scientist of Mackenzie Global Institute in Oran, Kochavi, Director of Terra Venture Partners. Our speakers today, they came from different countries, and therefore we start first a discussion from the international aspect. And I would like to give the floor to Mr. Mitsuan, the Executive Senior Staff Scientist of Mackenzie Global. Mr. Johnman, innovation processes that happen in China, this is a professional interest of yours. And just recently, under your direction, there was a big study, China on the way to information technologies and how internet influences production and growth. And quite long ago, you started studying innovation process in China. Could you tell us how principal it is to have the social, cultural peculiarities to implement innovations for that innovation miracle that we all see in China?
First of all, thank you for having me here today. So I fundamentally believe in the power of innovation, from the emerging market. So I'm really excited to be here to, share ideas and opinions on the innovation, right? So from China angle and also from Russia angle, right? And let me, to answer your question, right? So let me start with another question, right? Which is a stupid, yet a very fundamental question that we need to address, right? Which is, does innovation matter at all, right? And the answer should be yes, right? So otherwise we won't be here. We all won't be here today, right? And in the context of China, that is even more important, right? So for example, China showed a dramatic and phenomenal growth over the past, 3 decades, right? And that has been largely driven by, heavy capital expenditure, right? And the labor force expansion, right? So that has been the previous, economic, growth model in China, right? But then if you look at the future, right? So this model will not be sustainable, right? So you cannot indefinitely, continue to invest more and more capital into the economy, right? Because then there will be huge, resource allocation and overcapacity, marginal return of rate issues, right? And also labor force expansion, right? So the labor force, the working population in China is actually decreasing, right? And then they are getting more and more expensive. So relying on cheap labor, right? Those, competitiveness that has worked well in the past will decrease, right? But then, what should China do, right? So that, China can continue to grow, 7% of GDP or 6% of GDP, what should China do? How should China solve this problem, right? And there will be, many, approaches to solve this problem. But then, one important aspect is to drive innovation, right? Because innovation will fundamentally change the nature of the growth and change the economic model in China from previous heavy capital expenditure model to a new model, right? And then the latest research that we just published, that was mainly focusing on digital innovation, digital revolution in China, right? And then the impact from digital, right? The internet alone will contribute at least 1/5 of the GDP growth, right? Over the coming decade, right? And then if we broaden that impact to the entire innovation space, the impact will be even bigger, right? And in terms of the nature of the growth, right? So the innovation will bring in new market, new product, new services into the economy, right? And then it's going to create new exciting jobs, right? So that is higher paid, more creative, creativity oriented, more knowledge oriented jobs, right? So that at the individual level, people can realize their dreams, right? So this will be the overall impact of the innovation in the economy, right? So GDP growth, productivity growth, wage growth, and then realization of individual dreams, right? And that is important in China, and that's why the Chinese leaders keep emphasizing the innovation as a core pillar of growth strategy. And I'm sure that Premier Li will talk about it at 11 a.m. session today. Then, what is the innovation model in China, right, today, right? So, based upon our observation, and then if I have to summarize the China innovation model in one word, that'll be innovation through commercialization, right? And when we think about innovation, there are mainly, 2 different levels of innovation, right? So the first level of innovation is so-called, breakthrough innovation, right? So that is, based on the fundamental, new breakthrough findings. So for example, invention of the electricity, right? Invention of the transistor, or the new raw material like silicon, right, etc., right? Internet, right? So this is the most foundational level of innovation. So that's one type of innovation, and this is for the moment largely driven by developed economy, right? And second type of innovation is so-called incremental innovation, right? So you are not necessarily creating something fundamentally new and breakthrough, but you are extremely good at leveraging the existing technology, putting them together, synthesizing them in a very creative way, turn that into products, and then sell to the consumers and customers, and then that beautifully solve the problem of a country, of the economy, and that is very successful in terms of commercializing and creating a new value, right? So this type of innovation is the current innovation model that is very prevalent in China, and going forward, this model may continue to evolve, right? But then, so innovation through commercialization is, I would say, one, big theme, right, to characterize the China's innovation model, right? And then to share some example, right? For example, e-commerce, right? So e-commerce is based upon breakthrough internet technology, which is invented in the U.S., right? But then the commercialization, the big commercialization has happened in China, right? So for example, if you look at the size of e-tail market, China's e-tail market is close to 300 billion, which is already larger than the U.S., right? And if you look at the most representative company in the e-commerce space, that is Alibaba, which just went IPO a few weeks ago, and then the market cap of Alibaba is bigger than Amazon and eBay combined, right? So China is extremely doing a great job in terms of commercializing the fundamental technology and bring it to Chinese customers. And then, for example, Alibaba, how did they do this so well, right? And then, that is mainly based upon the super, local, consumer insights. So they understand the local consumers extremely well, the pain points extremely well. So, for example, when there was a initial, the development of the e-commerce, it didn't really pick up because there was a trust issue in terms of payment. And they introduced the concept of escrow payment, right? So-called Alipay system, which eBay didn't in China. So they just basically overturned the game, right? And then they introduced series of new innovation in Chinese market, based upon local insights. And based upon efficiency in terms of speed and cost, right? So I believe a lot of other Chinese companies are doing this and will do this. So this is going to continue, and then there will be a lot of interesting innovation through commercialization, coming out of China.
Господин Суен, но мне...
Mr. Suyen, but in any case, I would like to ask you, in your opinion, was it principle that unique Chinese workers' capability for this principal growth of innovations, or those successes that were achieved in China, that breakthrough growth of the few decades with the same influence of the state and stimulation of innovation policy from the state, it would be possible in any other country? Or this is all Chinese people's labor and capability to work so hard?
Characteristics from the Chinese market, right? So, for example, for innovation to happen, right? So you really need, three, elements, right? So one is, new idea, new interesting idea, right? Which is largely coming from the scientists, coming from people, right? So human capital, right? And that can be, scientists or entrepreneurs, right? And then, second is, how to turn this idea into products, right? And then for this, you need an ecosystem, right? So you need, venture capital. You need a cluster to really foster this product to be incubated, right? And then the third element is the market, the consumer, who are willing to embrace the new, products and new, tries, right? So from this, innovative, companies, right? So if you look at these elements, right? So China, had a good amount of, entrepreneurs who were willing to, take risk, right? And then, they also had a, venture capital to fund, these ideas, and then and who are patient enough to wait and and fund the growth, right, in the long term, right? And then in terms of market, the Chinese consumers, right, particularly in tier 3, tier 4 cities, in case of Alibaba, right, who struggle to buy the product that they want, right? So they loved this new e-commerce model, and they embraced this technology, right? So along this dimension, right? So yes, there are some unique Chinese characteristics, right? But then those principles, right, can be also replicated in the other countries, right? So for example, rather than focusing too much on scientific research, right, driving breakthrough, be practical, right, and then identify the problems that the consumers or citizens have in a certain economy, apply practical knowledge, and turn that knowledge into a product that can solve the problems.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much. This is right the recipe that Alibaba company became such biggest company to go on IPO. According to the forecast to 2020, the center of business activity will be shifted from Europe and Central America to Asia, and there will be more than 60% of international trade. And Mr. Suyan was saying that the volume of e-commerce right now is $300 billion, and there is another center of such economic innovation growth in Asia. This is naturally Singapore, and I think that Singapore model, innovation model of innovations miracle looks a bit different. And for me personally, it was a symbiosis of unique business climate and the active stimulation of the innovative process by the state. Mr. Francis Yeo, you are a professor of entrepreneurship mastery of the School of Information Technology of Singapore. In your opinion, in your point of view, what socio-cultural peculiarities in Singapore allowed you to achieve this economic miracle?
Morning.
Добрый.
Right, thank you very much. Coming from a very tiny city-state like Singapore, I think I'm humbled to be discussing with the experts here from much larger economies. Let me... let me share a little bit of what Singapore does. I wouldn't sort of dare to call it a model, but it is some lessons that we have learned. But before that, let me share a little bit about my country, Singapore. A little bit about myself. I have been involved in entrepreneurship and innovation for many years. I'm now a professor at the National University of Singapore, but I was previously handling the role of CEO of the National Research Foundation, which is an office set up by the Singapore government to promote research, innovation, and enterprise. And a lot of the things that I would talk about would draw from that experience. Now, where is Singapore? When you see Singapore on the world map, you probably need a magnifying glass because you cannot find it, right? So it's a tiny speck. If you compare it with Russia, for instance, I think the comparisons are really way out. For example, Russia is 24,000 times bigger, 24,000 times bigger in land area, and 26,000 times in population. So, you know, the comparisons are really very different. But because we are a very small nation, and because we do not have natural resources of oil or gas or whatever, so Singapore has to work very hard. So this is an example of the Singapore's, this is a chart of the Singapore's economic development over the years, over the last 50 years. Singapore gained independence in 1965. So the economic development has been advancing well, but Singapore has continually got to reinvent ourselves because as things change, you know, we have to adapt. So if you look at the chart, when Singapore started, it was a labor-intensive economy. There was high unemployment, no jobs available, so the strategy was to get companies to come to Singapore, international multinationals to come to Singapore to set up factories so that jobs can be created for the people. And as the job situation settles, improves, then the emphasis was on capital investment, skills intensive and capital intensive, developing the skills of the people, putting more capital investments. And then as we move along into the 90s, it becomes more technology intensive and knowledge intensive. So this is the situation that we are in. And of course, when the country is in the early stages of development, we do not talk about innovation, right? So innovation, R&D comes in probably in the 90s, so the last 20, 25 years. I've been in the generation that you see the very dramatic growth of Singapore. So I've seen the transformation of Singapore from this is Singapore River, with a lot of small boats, small trading center, to what it is today, right? The same place, which is a very modern metropolis. So we were fortunate in that the different strategies seem to work for us. So now we are addressing the very important part of entering into innovation economy. So the government worked very hard, and I think Singapore is known for quite a strong state intervention in the affairs of industry. So because of the hard work and because of we are fortunate, Singapore was able to be linked quite well, be ranked quite well in international rankings. For example, in the use of IT, in e-government, and particularly the ease of doing business, which is a very important part of for a small nation, where you want a lot of business to happen. Also, in terms of the number of internet firms per 1 million population, you see that although Singapore has a very small population, but when you normalize the internet companies as per 1 million, normalize it by the population, it's actually quite big. The circle that you see in Singapore is quite a lot bigger, only smaller than Israel. And this was a recent study that put Singapore as the #1 most innovative city in the Asia Pacific. And then there are some more reports in the media about Singapore's efforts. So let me talk a little bit about, the panel talks about social-cultural factors affecting innovation. And I think people would think of factors like this, right? A rich science and technology base, openness and diversity, tolerance of untidiness, willingness to take risks, acceptance of failure, perhaps even a celebration of failure as a learning experience. We don't have time to talk about too much, but to me, in my experience of living and working in Singapore, I think the most important factor that affects innovation, that is social-cultural, is really the openness and the diversity. So let me give you a few examples. Singapore is open and welcoming of business from all over the world. So it is a multinational business environment. We've got big companies from the US, Europe, in the early days, and increasingly now more from China, from India, also from the region. So it's a very open business environment, tens of thousands of multinational companies. To support this sort of business environment, there's a lot of investments in infrastructure, the port, the airport, the highways, and projects like Marina Barrage, which is a reservoir, which is right at the heart of the Singapore River. Give you an example. In my work previously, even in research and development, Singapore adopted a very open approach of cooperation. So this was a major project to build a campus that would undertake world-class research. And we invited some of the top institutions in the world, which are known for their good science as well as their good innovation, to come to Singapore to set up research labs, so that there's diversity and there's a lot of ideas in R&D. Similarly, we were very open to talent from all over the world. So one of the programs was a research fellowship, which is extended to young scientists from all over the world to come to Singapore And if they are selected, they get 5 years grant, quite a generous grant. They get a position as an assistant professor in a university. And so over the years, we have got, as you can see on the chart, 65 fellows, very bright young scientists under the age of 35 from all over the world that is carrying out the research in Singapore. And every year also, we organize a Young Scientist Summit where young scientists from all over the world are invited to be in Singapore, and we gather more than 20 top scientists, Nobel laureates, Turing Awards winners, Millennium Prize winners, Fields medalists, at the very top of the science to come and have dialogues with the scientists, not just from Singapore, but also from the rest of the world. Okay. In the universities where I come from, the NUS, there's a very popular program for many years now that sends undergraduates, young 20-something students all over the world to immerse themselves in the entrepreneurial environment. It started off with Silicon Valley, but it has now grown to so many locations, as you can see, in Beijing, in Shanghai, in Stockholm, in Israel. So these students would spend up to a year immersing in the entrepreneurial environment, perhaps acting as an intern to the startups. Okay. So in my previous work at the National Research Foundation, we wanted to develop an R&D-based innovation enterprise ecosystem that will look at how R&D can move over to innovation to commercialization, and to have all the factors that would help. For example, venture capital, universities, innovation, and so on, to make this a vibrant ecosystem. So this is the ecosystem that Singapore has now as a result of many initiatives. I do not have the time to mention all of them. So in terms of venture capitalists, in terms of incubators, in terms of government agencies that are promoting innovation and entrepreneurship, in terms of also of events. Okay, so in conclusion, I think Harvard professor Josh Lerner wrote a book about developing entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystems. And he gave a long list of guidelines, but I think some of the few that I picked up here are relevant. That is, innovation has to be done and developed in total, in an ecosystem approach. There's a need to leverage the local academic and scientific base, understand the importance of global connections, and also allow for creativity and flexibility. So in conclusion, Singapore, as a small country operating in a highly competitive, globalized world, developing an innovation ecosystem requires great openness and diversity, among other things, but openness and diversity is important. The country must be open and relevant, nimble and flexible if it aspires to become a significant and value-adding node in the global innovation network. Thank you.
Господин Фрэнсис Йоу, спасибо вам огромное.
Mr. Yo, thank you very much for this great presentation. And I would like to draw your attention to the fact that Mr. Yo said we don't have oil and gas, that's why we have to work hard. Of course, it's different for Russia because Russia has great, vast amounts of natural resources. And a week ago, I participated in a discussion where young Russian innovators participated, and they were discussing how their ideas could be implemented, how they could introduce innovations in Russia. And their dream is to get the contract for a large company. And it was like almost, half voluntary, half forced way of introducing innovations. We are having Deputy Minister for Energy, Mr. Tesla, and I know that next year you're going to spend 170 billion rubles, which is about $6 billion, that is going to be invested for investing innovation. So can you give us more details about the innovative program of our large industrial companies is about 170 billion rubles. So what's behind this amount? So let me remind you of statistics. Russia every year is growing in terms of oil extraction. And so we're using advanced, modern, innovative technologies and in oil industry. And we have different technologies, chemical, thermal impact. And this amount of money is provided by research institutions, by research programs related to the introduction of such technologies, so they could be used more effectively in order to expand the oil extraction volume and improve its economic indicators. So speaking about the role of the state, today our state program for energy efficiency and energy development, we have already taken certain measures, certain steps to introduce innovations. As an example, I can tell you that some fuels are going to be prohibited beginning with the next year, which has a grade lower than 4. So they have to modernize their equipment to comply with this standard. As an incentive for economic development, I can give you another example. We have actually implemented the taxation reform. And we speak about different kinds of types of oil extraction, which are difficult to extract, and so its extraction is much more expensive than usual, just regular technology. So our taxation system did not fit here, because our taxation system did not allow extracting such oil resources effectively. So by introducing this taxation reform, we managed to improve the situation. We managed to extract oil volume by 20 billion. So it means that this will be much more effective. And we are not going to stop here. We are going to continue our taxation reform in order to stimulate oil extraction. So these are those measures that have been adopted today. And at the same time, we are developing strategic documents. For example, energy-related strategy, forecast for technological development of energy and fuel industry. So we have identified a number of innovative areas for development that include both commercial and fundamental research. I can list you those areas. First of all, it's geological surveys. And we have actually just discussed certain methods that can be used. Then network accumulators that are going to change the energy balance on the international scale. It will have us. It will help decrease the dependency on carbon. On carbon. Then we are going to use different sources of energy that can resumable energy sources, and we are moving in the same vein. And our state program has certain has made certain steps that help us introduce these resumable sources of energy, and we hope that it would be tenfold bigger than today. Now, speaking about intellectual networks and high temperature superconductivity, and this would help us reduce losses during power supply. And we are using new kinds of fuel that again will help us decrease the dependency on carbon. And also we are implementing new transport technologies, gas, hybrid sources, and this has also been addressed, and this will help us again change the automobile industry and the energy balance overall. So what are we doing at the moment to make sure these innovative technologies are used effectively so that the private business could benefit from this, as well as research institutions? We have developed and approved the roadmap plan of activities to introduce modern technologies and materials, which involves a very wide interaction between all the stakeholders to promote innovations. First of all, we speak about the fundamental science. Together with Russian Academy of Science and sectoral institutions, we develop modern programs. So this will help improve our fundamental sciences. Our analysis will help achieve certain breakthroughs. Then together with educational institutions, together with the Ministry of Education, we're going to develop special standards so that our young students could study in line with advanced technologies and advanced vision of development. So we are going to interact with education institutions in various ways. We are going to monitor innovative programs and analyze those programs, thus promote innovative methods of development, trying to find the most effective ways to stimulate the economy. And the development of small and medium business is also a priority for us, because these are those entities that will help commercialize these innovative processes. So we interact actively with the Skolkovo Foundation, as well as other innovative institutions that help us promote these programs. We have also some special national projects that are going to deliver special technologies that are commercially effective, and we are going to identify 20 such projects at least as part of this roadmap, and the ministry will be a mentor helping to promote these innovative projects that will affect positively the development of innovations in this country. So this is briefly the outline of our work. Thank you very much, Alexei. So we have considered 3 examples so far. We have heard about the Chinese innovative system, and we understand that this internal market was instrumental, and this very tranquil state of mind that the Chinese investors have is very special for that country. Then speaking about Singapore, the population was ready to take risks, and then the government plays a very important role in attracting young scientists. And Mr. Texler told us about the innovative projects in Russia. And now I would like to ask Mr. Frank Fu, who is the Executive Vice President for Business Development, Kingsoft Office Software. You know, when I was getting ready for this presentation, I downloaded your application, and I saw that you have it in different languages: Chinese, Italian, many other languages. You work globally. Your company works in China and in the US. So do you think the innovative project depends on society that sees these innovations introduced, or maybe socio-cultural differences no longer matter in today's world.
I'm honored to be here, and good morning to everyone. You know, I was born and raised in Shanghai, and my dad studied Russian, so I grew up watching a Russian movie with my dad. This is a wonderful experience. It's really intriguing. A beautiful country, and I'm very excited. This is my first trip to Moscow, and I think I'll be coming back again and again. Again, thanks very much for this opportunity to participate. Many of you already know that China is a vast economy, but it is still, in fact, an emerging market. It's still a developing market. Therefore, the innovation is critical to its success and survival. I'd like to talk about innovation in terms of policy, regulation, technology, and also human relationship. China comes from a very traditional world. Therefore, its economy, its infrastructure, government policies, and technology weren't very efficient in the past. Especially the human relationship was a big hurdle for technology companies and government agencies to operate. A lot of things are based on a relationship, especially human relationship. Therefore, it made it almost impossible to grow, to innovate, and to succeed on the global basis. Therefore, I think the Chinese government actually did a good job, open up the market to foreign investments. As a matter of fact, we benefited from investments from Japan, from the United States, from Singapore, of course, and from even Russia. One of our sister company is a cell phone manufacturer, a smartphone manufacturer called Xiaomi. Xiaomi was invested by a Russian venture capital company, and I think one of the partner is a gentleman named Yuri Milner. Xiaomi, since its establishment, has been only in business for less than 3 years, and it's already worth billions of dollars. Kingsoft, on the other hand, has been in business for 25 years. We started from a PC product competing with Microsoft on Microsoft Office. And so we were trading behind for many years until about 3 years ago. We noticed that the mobile market has grown very, very fast, and Microsoft was not paying any attention. So our strategy towards that is to start a mobile office suite, fully compatible with Microsoft Office, and also fully comparable in terms of features and the functionality. Today, we have over 700 million subscribers worldwide, and we support 46 languages, including Russian. You can download for free from our website, wps.com, or you can download from Google Play Store, Google App Store. On the mobile side alone, we have 300 million subscribers worldwide. So innovation is a critical part of our success. We focused very initially on a global market, therefore supporting the languages worldwide, as well as packing everything down into a small size of a 100 meg software, which is equivalent to a Microsoft 1 gig software, is an innovation. We also included the social elements inside of our software, allowing the users to collaborate, to communicate, and to socialize with their peers, colleagues, and friends. We've made it very easy for people to use their mobile device to view, to edit, and share their documents when they are on the business trips or outside of office. So you no longer have to be bound by your desks and office environments. So I'm going to stop here and allow Oksana to ask a few more questions. And also I welcome any discussions our honored guests may have.
Спасибо огромное.
Thank you very much. Maybe now let's keep the Q&A session for later, and I would like now to give the floor to Mr. Oran Kochavi. Oran, could you tell us, you're a partner of the company Terra Venture Partners, and the leading venture partner in Israel that invests in innovation technologies that influences many people, millions of people in the world, not only in Israel. And if I'm not mistaken, I think your annual investment is about $1 million into new R&D companies. In your opinion, how principal it is to have national peculiarities of innovations in any other country, in your country in particular?
First of all, I would like to thank you, Oksana, for inviting me to speak in the panel, and I would like to thank all the guests for speaking. It was a pleasure to hear you. And Terra Venture Partners is not the biggest and neither the leading VC in Israel, but it is a very interesting venture capital, which I will elaborate later. But I think what's most important about the Israeli innovational ecosystem is, of course, the Israeli entrepreneur. And I think the Israeli entrepreneur is compiled out of 5 pillars, and I will elaborate. So the first one is there's a saying in Hebrew which has Kol Israel Achim. In translation means that all the Israelis are brothers, which means we take care for each other, which means when we are somewhere, we are together. So all my friends are here with me today. So we keep each other's back. So that's the first one. The second one, I think, is that we don't talk. We're not a talker country. When we have to do something, we just jump to the deepest water we can and we do what we have to. I think this is also came from the place that Israel must innovate because it's a necessity of life. Israel is a very small country, exactly like my colleague from Singapore mentioned about his country, but we're now about 7.5 million people. Not all of them are Jews, of course, and Jews are trying to take care for each other. And I think the country is around 66 years of age, and we reached some really, really nice milestones. If you look at it as an investment or as a startup, then it's definitely a startup nation. So there are a lot of numbers regarding Israel, and I guess you must have heard a lot of them. For example, there is a #1 rank in Nobel Prizes per capita. It's #1 ranked in VC investments per capita. It's #1 ranked in patents per capita. It's ranked. It's called Silicon Valley #2. It's only 3rd in the Nasdaq after US and China. So how can a country, a state with only 7 million people, can be so successful? It's only because of the people. It's only because of the human capital, not because of venture capital. So that's what we hear. And as I said, the first one, we're all brothers. The second one, we do stuff and we don't talk. The third one, it's a necessity of life, and because of the army as well. In the army, there are many units, many technological units, many things that we must do in order to survive. Okay, we have to develop new technologies, new weapons, new SIGINT capabilities, and of course, new ways to do what we do. But we cannot elaborate about all the things what we do in the army, of course. So Another thing that I think the fourth pillar of the Israeli entrepreneur and the ecosystem in general is fail is okay. You can fail. Nothing will happen to you. I know there are many, many cultures that failure is not all right. If you fail, then it's like a sign on your forehead or something like that. In Israel, if you fail, then your father comes to you and you tell you, okay, now do other stuff because you learned your lesson, so you can go on and do what you can do. I think I wrote things for myself, but I don't understand everything. So another thing is because maybe not just because of the army, but because the failure is okay and everything. So people are becoming braver and braver, and they are trying to find really simple solutions to really hard 21st century problems. Because when we arrived, not myself, but my ancestors, for example, they arrived in Israel 66 years ago. So they saw a country that was basically a desert. Okay, there was nothing over there, and they had to bring water and food and technology and to make connections with the world that didn't want Israel to exist, most of the world, and so we had to think out of the box, and that's what you do in Israel. You all the time have to think out of the box in order to make things happen. You can see that the global community now believes in Israel. There are more than 350 innovation centers in Israel. There is a great connection with all the countries. The first R&D the first Microsoft R&D center outside of Redmond, USA, was opened in Israel as well. So that's why I think is the uniqueness of the Israeli entrepreneur, which impacts, of course, the ecosystem as a whole. Thank you.
Оран, спасибо большое.
Oran, thank you very much. You told us about Israeli features of ecosystem in very detail. I would like to give the floor to Vasily Belov, the Senior Vice President of Innovation, Skolkovo. Vasily, I would like you that you would talk a little bit closer to the ending of our session, because Skolkovo Foundation takes a special place in the Russian innovation model, and I know that during the period of establishment of Skolkovo Foundation, you were studying international experience. Could you tell us what models and what countries' experience you took for yourself and you used for yourself? It's too early to speak about the results yet, but did you manage to adapt some of the models in the Russian circumstances? Oksana, thank you very much for the question. And you know, I would say that in the world, there are no two ecosystems, innovation ecosystems in the world that would completely match, like 70 or 80% match. It's such a diversified area of projects and activities, and I think that each country uses its advantages and socio-cultural peculiarities. This is today's topic of our discussion today. I will give you a couple of examples, or maybe let's talk about the types of innovation ecosystems. What are their principal differences and around what they can be built? And the first and the main category that you can differentiate them, this is the content of ecosystems by elements. If what we heard from the previous speakers, there are certain elements that are necessary in order to create innovations, and naturally this is R&D foundation. So ecosystems should be built either in connection to the R&D or near R&D or based on R&D or in partnership with a university or R&D center. So the scientific component is very important, and can be innovation ecosystem that can be based on the university's foundation. That is, for example, happens in Massachusetts, around Boston area, and in other places. And the second area, so to speak, that you can diversify it when you build in the ecosystem, this is their industrial belonging. This can be an ecosystem that is built in one particular industry or that works with industries that converge. If we're talking about Skolkovo project, that here we worked in 5 industries. This is energy, IT, medicine, radio technologies, and space. And I think that the choice was made by the competitiveness of those areas. For example, in such areas as innovation technologies, Russian companies are pretty competitive in the global market, and we know such companies as Yandex and many others that are well known in the West, abroad. In the area of energy, this area is very urgent for Russia. Russia in global scale is a big market, and we have to work with it. In space, we have a good history, and so we can be also competitive in this area, and so on. So a very important element of any ecosystem, we spoke about science, we talk about industries, and this also cooperation with different markets. And these are big companies or industry that supports the development of ecosystem, because innovations, this is to implement R&D activities into business. And the key here is the last part of the phrase that in Russia the scientific community oftentimes forgets, that innovation, this is not R&D only, this is implementation of R&D that brings to business, and this implementation happens together with our industry partners that in one way or another should be integrated in any innovation ecosystem. Sometimes, as for example in Israel, it's pretty aggressive in a good sense, a business environment that is oriented on its effectiveness, on consuming new innovations, where competitiveness is very important, and it is a driver of development of big business in Russia, and we also pay a lot of attention to this. And I think that here we have a lot to learn in terms of being aggressive, and in terms of building business. As a part of our project, we integrate with big companies by involving them in our ecosystem, by placing the R&D centers of those companies in Skolkovo territory. We have more than 40 companies that are our partners today, and some of them, they already placed their R&D centers in Skolkovo. Some of them are still building them. We're quite a young project. They're only 4 years old. But in a couple of years, we'll have about 5,000 people working at our territory, from those R&D centers. Venture community. This is also a very important part of ecosystem. It's clear that without money, without investment, you can't really build any business. And here it's important to talk about it. So this is what differentiate ecosystem from just venture business or a venture company. In ecosystem, money comes together with mentorship. These are smart money, so to speak. This is the money that actively invested in the company, and the investor participates in management of the startup. If at the late stage of the company we're talking about IPO, that's not applicable at all there. Mostly the passive institutional investors or non-institutional investors who do not participate in management of the company. But at the early stage, when the startup idea goes through that death valley, so to speak, and and the destiny of the company is being at stake, so that venture capital is very important. So there are different stages here, in our opinion, and it's very important, especially for Russia, where this industry is being developing, and it's quite big in international scale, and we support startups, and we involve smart money and investors in ecosystem. In our case, we realize it at having several initiatives. One of them is our venture community. This is our venture partners. There are more than 100 venture funds that, according to our agreements with them, with a soft commitment, they gave us $1 billion this available money to invest in Skolkovo residents. The second initiative that we started realizing not so long ago, I think it's extremely important, especially for the Russian market, this angel investment. Investors here are even more active in managing startups, and in my opinion, Russia has a great potential here. In Russia, there are many well-to-do people who have enough funds to invest in startups. In order to understand that, in the West, there is this widely spread model. When you have several investments, they create a group and they have a so-called syndicated investment. In this case, contribution of each of them can start from $10,000, which is absolutely, say, so to speak, accessible money for many people in our country. But culture of investment into early startups and managing those startups, this culture is very young in our country. If we calculate the dollar millionaires in Russia, dollar millionaires, they invest 20 times less in startups than anywhere in the world. Usually they invest in real estate, this is stock market, or some of their traditional projects. We don't have this culture yet, but it's a big potential, and it allows to attract not only new money, but also to share your professional experience, because they're the people who are very successful in business. They have something to share with the beginners, with the beginning entrepreneurs. And our third initiative that is also extremely important, this is mentorship support. And I think that this is that very link of each ecosystem that allows us to transmit the experience and skills from those who are successful to those who just begin their professional activities and who are taking risks.
Наверное, это такой основной взгляд на элементы экосистемы. Буквально еще пару слов хотел бы добавить про социокультурные особенности. Здесь, наверное, важно, чтобы при развитии собственных предпринимательских инициатив действительно была культура.
That while developing our own investment culture, we have to be tolerant in terms of mistakes. We have to be ambitious. We have to be willing to generate something, to create something. And it's really important for us. And something that Russia lacks is international scale. Today, technology-intensive business cannot be local in their scale. Those markets that create innovations, even though we have such a big market here in Russia, it's very competitive on the international scale. So in order to keep your positions on internal market, you have to be competitive on the global scale. So this is the area that needs development. And so all our innovators should be aware of that and try to be as ambitious as possible. Thank you, Vasily, very much. And Oran, you have something to add. You're welcome.
I saw that time is running up, so I wanted to let the people know that it's very appreciated that they sit here all the time. It was very interesting for me, and of course you can add me on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm very active and I would like to connect with any of you and the panelists, of course, so you are welcome.
Спасибо большое. Уважаемые коллеги, ну вот Оран абсолютно прав, что...
That's true. Thank you, Oran, and thank you, dear colleagues. We are running out of time, and maybe we have just touched upon certain issues that we face today. And it's not only related to innovations, creating innovations and innovative model. And I'm sure we'll have another chance to discuss this at different sections because our forum is about innovation. So thank you very much for taking part in this morning discussion and best of luck for your work. And dear colleagues, I would like to invite you to go to plenary meeting hall.